Hey, you, welcome back to Medium with the Mic. I'm Kari Bandel. I want to start today with a question. Have you ever woken up from a dream absolutely convinced that something evil had visited you in the night? Heart pounding, that feeling still in your body, that presence still in the room. Maybe you saw a dark figure. Maybe you felt a pressure on your chest. Maybe something in the dream felt so real, so physically present, that the line between sleeping and waking completely disappeared. And maybe, like so many people I encounter, your first instinct was to reach for fear, to label it demonic, to pray it away, or to post about it online and have 50 people tell you that you need spiritual protection immediately. And I understand that instinct, I really do. When something frightens us, we want to name it, we want to contain it. We want someone to tell us what it is and how to make it stop. But here's what I've learned after working as a psychic medium and intuitive empath, and after interpreting many dreams for many people. The vast majority of dark, frightening, disturbing dreams are not demonic visitations. They are messages. And the difference between those two things, between a demonic attack and a symbolic message, matters enormously because one makes you a victim of something external, and the other hands you the key to something internal that is desperately trying to be heard. Today, we're going to look at what dark dreams actually are, why they feel so real, what they're almost always trying to tell you, and how to decode them instead of fear them. And I'm going to share with you some real dream examples because nothing demonstrates this better than the actual dreams people have brought to me and what we discovered when we looked beneath the fear. Before we talk about what dark dreams mean, let's talk about why they feel so viscerally, physically, undeniably real. The first thing to understand is the sleep wake threshold. Scientists call it hypnagogia when you're falling asleep and hypnopompic when you're waking up. These are the liminal zones, the in between spaces where your brain is neither fully asleep nor fully awake. And in those spaces, something extraordinary happens. The brain's threat detection system, the amygdala, is highly active. The part of your brain that filters reality is not fully online yet. And the result is experiences that feel completely physically real. Presences in the room, sounds you can hear, sensations you can feel in your body. And sleep paralysis, which occurs when your body is still in sleep mode while your mind is still waking up, can create the sensation of a weight on your chest, an inability to move, and often the overwhelming feeling of a malevolent presence nearby. I personally have had firsthand experience feeling held down in my bed. This experience has been documented across virtually every culture in human history. The old hag in English folklore, the mare in Scandinavian tradition, the kanashibari in Japanese culture, the papobawa in East Africa. Every culture, every era, every corner of the world has a name for this experience because every human nervous system has it. That's not evidence of a universal demonic force. That's evidence of a universal human experience that our brains have been interpreting through the lens of whatever belief system was available to us at that time. Carl Jung, whose work I find endlessly relevant to dream interpretation, He introduced the concept of the shadow self, the parts of us we've rejected, suppressed, or refused to look at. In dreams, the shadow often appears as a dark figure, a threatening presence, or something that feels menacing, or something other because we made it something other. We've pushed it so far outside our conscious awareness that when it shows up in dream form, we don't recognize it as part of ourselves at all. The dark figure chasing you, often it's an emotion you've been running from. The heavy presence in the room, often it's something unresolved that your soul is trying to bring to your attention. That voice telling you not to do something, not to call someone, not to seek help, that is worth paying very close attention to, because what the presence is trying to prevent often reveals exactly what you need most. Dreams don't speak in plain language, they speak in symbol, in metaphor, in image, and feeling and sensation. And learning to decode that language rather than immediately labeling it evil and praying it away is one of the most powerful things you can do for your own growth and healing. Let me share a dream that was brought to me, and let me show you exactly how this decoding process works. Someone dreamed they were visiting a young woman in hospice. She had just had a baby. She was dying of cancer and was completely resigned to it, peaceful almost in her acceptance. In the dream, the person wasn't a friend or a family member, they were a filmmaker, an observer, there to document her story or to witness it. The woman was breathtakingly beautiful on the outside, but inside there was a war going on. And when she died, the dreamer wept. Now, most people would hear this dream and say it's about death, about grief, about loss. And on the surface, that makes sense. But let's look deeper. The filmmaker role is significant. To observe and document someone's story, to witness it without being able to intervene. There's a built in helplessness to that role, a distance that coexists with deep emotional investment. You're present, you care, you're moved to tears, but you cannot change what's happening. The hospice setting is a place where death is certain and the process is simply being honored. It speaks to a situation where the outcome cannot be changed, where acceptance is the only available response. And the baby, a new life and impending death in the same space, is hope and devastation existing simultaneously. And that image, beautiful on the outside, war on the inside, is perhaps the most universal human truth of all. How many people do we know who look perfectly fine to the world while carrying something devastating within? This dream had nothing to do with death. It had everything to do with watching someone you love suffer in a way you cannot fix. The filmmaker wasn't documenting a stranger's story. They were bearing witness to someone close to them, processing helplessness, love, and grief through the safe metaphorical distance of a dream. That is your soul doing its most sacred work. Now, let me share a dream that much more easily gets labeled as demonic because on the surface, it really does look like it could be. Someone shared this dream with me. They were back in their childhood home in a country they hadn't lived in for years, now living somewhere else entirely, but about to move to a third location. In the dream, they were near the garden and kept finding broken injection samples scattered in the soil. And then a heavy, hateful presence began to surround them, moving closer. And this presence had one primary agenda. It kept telling them not to call their mother, not to pray, not to tell anyone what was happening. So they woke up still feeling this heart racing, mental fog, crying. And so they called their mother, which is the exact thing the presence had told them not to do. Their mother prayed with them, and gradually the feeling lifted. Now, most people, and I see this constantly on social media, would immediately label this as a demonic attack. And I understand why. The hatred felt real, the physical sensations upon waking were real, the targeting felt intentional. But let's decode this rather than fear it. The childhood home in a country left behind, this dream was pulling up deep roots, early programming, family patterns, the foundational self. Whatever was formed there, whatever was planted in that soil, was being surfaced. The broken injection samples in the garden are striking imagery. Injections represent something being put into the body, substances, beliefs, influences. Finding them broken in a place of growth could symbolize old toxic inputs that no longer have power, residue of old wounds coming to the surface to be cleared. And the presence, that hateful presence, its entire strategy was isolating and silencing. Cut her off from her mother, cut her off from prayer, cut her off from intercession, from connection, from the people and practices that would support her. That is not random. That is a very specific tactic. And when you see the tactic clearly, you see the message clearly. Connection is your protection. Reaching out is your power. The thing that opposes you most is the thing that's trying to keep you isolated. She did the exact right thing. She called her mother. She prayed, and the feeling lifted. Now, do I believe this was purely psychological? Honestly, I hold space for the mystery here. Some dreams do seem to operate in a more spiritually charged way than others. I've experienced enough in this work to stay humble about what I don't know. But even if there was a genuine spiritual dimension to this experience, the response is not fear. The response is exactly what she did: connection, prayer, reaching out, bringing light into the space. Fear would have kept her isolated, exactly what the presence wanted. The third dream I want to share sits right on the fascinating line between spiritual experience, psychological processing, and the hypnopompia threshold that we talked about earlier. Someone described what they called spiritual frequency warfare in a dream. During the dream, a frequency, like an earthworm, was transmitted directly into their ear. They could feel it physically. It went into their brain, and they felt it at the base of their skull above the neck, trying to scramble their memories around a specific person in the dream. They had trained themselves to wake up from unpleasant dreams and did so immediately, but even upon waking, the sensation lingered in the body for a few seconds. The memories around the specific person felt genuinely fuzzy. They were fine. The transmission, as they described it, was unsuccessful, but they wanted to understand what had happened. Here's what I find most significant about this dream. First, the physical sensation lingering upon waking, that is the hypnopompia threshold at work. brain crossing from sleep to waking while the dream state is still present in the body. That liminal zone where the most real feeling experiences land. It's not evidence of a literal external attack. It is evidence of how profoundly the brain can blur that boundary. Second, and this is the part I really want you to hear, the scrambling of memory was not general. It wasn't trying to take everything, it was targeting memory around one specific person. That specific detail is the message. When a dream zeroes in on one particular person, when the threat, the presence, the disturbance centers on that one relationship, the dream is almost always certainly processing something unresolved in that connection, something charged, something that's perhaps been looked at differently in waking life. The dream didn't choose that person randomly because dreams don't work that way. They are precise, they are purposeful. And when the content of a frightening dream centers on a specific relationship, that relationship is where your attention is being directed. Not to fear it, to look at it. The person in the dream is building something meaningful in the world, a healing business, a public presence, a platform. And their instinct was that this visibility made them a target. That may be true on some level. The more light you put out, the more contrast it creates. But the real question the dream was asking wasn't, are you under attack? It was, what is unresolved between you and this person? And are you ready to look at it? So, how do you do this yourself? How do you move from fear to decoding when a dream frightens you? Here's a simple 3-question framework. Question 1: what was the emotion? Not the content, the emotion. Fear, helplessness, rage, grief, shame. The emotion is almost always the message in its purest form. The imagery is just the vehicle the dream uses to deliver it. Question 2: what was the tactic? If there was a threatening presence, what what was it trying to do? Isolate you, silence you, scramble something, chase you? The tactic reveals what the dream is actually about. A presence that isolates speaks to loneliness or disconnection. A presence that silences speaks to something you're not saying. A presence that chases speaks to something you're avoiding. Question 3: who or what does this remind you of in your waking life? Dreams are almost never about what they appear to be about on the surface. The hospice wasn't about death. The hateful presence wasn't about demons. The frequency warfare wasn't about spiritual attack. They were all about something happening in the dreamer's waking life, dressed in symbolic clothing, because the soul communicates in image and metaphor, not in plain speech. Sit with those 3 questions and write them down if you can, and see what surfaces. I want to address something directly before I close because I see it constantly. When people post about frightening dreams online, the responses are almost always fear based. Pray immediately, rebuke it, cleanse your space, you're under spiritual attack, call on protection. And look, I believe in prayer. I believe in energetic protection. I believe in cleansing spaces and calling in light. These are not empty practices. But leading with fear, labeling everything dark as demonic, seeing every shadow as an attack, living in a state of spiritual defensiveness. That is not protection. That is a different kind of trap. Because fear, as we've talked about in previous episodes, does not exist on the other side. It's a human construct. And when we build our entire spiritual framework around fear, when our first response to anything dark or uncomfortable is panic and protection, we are giving that darkness exactly the power it would need to affect us. The most spiritually protected people I know are not the ones in constant warfare with demonic forces. They are the ones who have done their inner work, who have looked at their own shadow, who understand that most darkness is either symbolic, self created, or both, and who meet the unknown with curiosity rather than terror. That is the goal, not the absence of dark dreams, but the ability to sit with them, decode them, and receive what they're actually offering you. Your dreams are not your enemy, even the dark ones, even the ones you wake up to terrified. When even the ones that linger in your body for hours after waking, they are your soul's most direct communication channel, the place where the higher self and subconscious mind and sometimes the spiritual realm all speak in the same language: symbol, metaphor, image, and feeling. Learn that language. Decode rather than fear. Ask questions rather than run from it. And if you have a dream that frightens you, one you can't shake, or one that feels significant, one that you know is trying to tell you something, but you can't quite hear what it is, I offer personal dream interpretations for just $20 at sacredwhispers1111.com. Not because dreams are scary, but because they matter. And because sometimes having someone else hold the flashlight makes all the difference. Thank you for listening to Medium with a Mic. I'm Kari. Sweet dreams, and keep listening to those whispers of wisdom.